Okay. Welcome back to another episode of Us Anxious Folk. I am here with Meg, who is a mumma from New South Wales, and somebody that I've been following for quite a long time. We were just speaking about how it's been, at least 5 years?
Yeah, I'd say probably, a good half a decade. It sounds good when you say it like that.
That sounds crazy. That makes me feel a bit old.
I didn't love that when I said it. I went, no.
Take that back. But yeah, so thank you for being on the show. Meg's kindly agreed to speak to me about health anxiety, which is something that I'm really diving into at the moment, learning more about. So yeah, thank you for willing to be open.
Thank you. No, thank you. I think it's such a beautiful platform that you've created to be able to just express and learn from others as well. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you.
No worries. Well, given that, let's jump in. Tell me your anxiety story. Share your story.
Hell with you, God love. Look, I cannot really remember a time that I haven't been, or my identity hasn't been anxiety or mental health. I remember, as young as 5, I really, really struggled with leaving my mum and the worry of what would happen when I left my mum. And I think from about kinder to year 2, I would go home sick. And that could be, I've been vomiting in the toilet. I wasn't vomiting. I just wanted to go. And I just wanted to go see my mum, my safe place, make sure my safe person was okay. Her and I went through some trauma with my dad leaving when I was 2. So for me, she was my whole world. And for me to have to leave, go to school, that was huge. So that's kind of where I guess my mental health story starts, of being so young. And, I preface this is I'm not, in any sense professional, but I just look at kids these days and I just think I hope they're being heard, because when we were younger, and I said that we just said we're quite old now, that, I hope they're being listened and heard, because it wasn't discussed when I was younger. And I think that's one of the hardest things. And my mum beats herself up, and I wish she wouldn't, because it was like no one knew what was going on then. No one knew. They'd be like, oh, Meg, you're such a worrywart, you're such a, you think too much. And, I think now looking back, I'm like, you were not thinking too much. You didn't know how to not think too much. So that kind of escalated, I guess, when I became a teenager. I didn't know, because teenagers don't know what's going on. You're trying to find yourself. And then on top of that, having anxiety, it was just, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to handle myself. And I guess that also, an underlying condition that I've recently been diagnosed with was Adhd. So I can see how it all intertwined when I was a teenager, being chatty, being too much, being a people pleaser. And I guess the only time I didn't feel anxious was when I hit about 17, 18, and I left home because that's what I knew what I was doing. But then, the anxiety came spiraling back in when I fell pregnant with my first. And I think you can appreciate that too, that kind of, it wasn't as bad as it has been with my first. It was okay. I could manage it quite well. But I guess this is where then the health anxiety slots in. I had my second. I was pregnant with my second, and I was so sick. I had hypermesis. So I was dropping weight dramatically, vomiting all the time. I was so unwell. And I remember, and it's a bit of a joke in my family, I'd lost such an amount of weight that I stood up off my mum and dad's lounge because I just couldn't get up. But my underpants dropped.
Oh my God.
So that's... But now looking back, it was not a good time. And so I finally became medicated with some great anti-nausea drugs, and it got to, I was managing. But my anxiety, and I think this is where it kind of really hit home, was I was so afraid of becoming sick again. And I was so afraid of anyone else being sick because I couldn't control that. So I was 34 weeks pregnant, and my whole family, because we were living with my parents at the time, my whole family came down with a terrible stomach bug. And that was just the worst thing that could have happened, possibly. I was hospitalized for about the 5th time then with dehydration and, you know, to me, it was that control issue. It was that what ifs. And it was thinking, what if I die? What if something's wrong with the baby? So it was like, oh my goodness, this just, you know, you're already exhausted being pregnant. And then there's that on top of it, as well, worrying, could I look after my son? He's only 3, like he doesn't understand. And so, you know, I had my baby beautiful birth. Everything was great. I was great, but I slipped into postnatal depression. Obviously, let's just top it off there. So, you know, had some pretty intense, I say, postnatal depression, and I became agoraphobic. So I legitimately just did not want to leave the house. Because of germs, I was scared of germs. So within an inch of, you know, the research you could find, I found out how to get rid of stomach bugs, what was the best thing to keep your gut health right, how, you know, stomach bugs manifested in your body, and, you know, what was the time frame from if you were exposed to, you know, when you got sick. So I delve deep into that with health anxiety. I think you become so obsessed with what could go wrong. And I mean, I think that was my daughter's 10 now, so that was 10 years ago, and I just remember now looking back just how sick I was, and I couldn't comprehend that. And I still am like, wow, you were not good, you were not well. And I mean, I say, like, health anxiety kind of runs in my family. My grandma's always been really really hypervigilant about her health as well. And to me, I was like, I never want to be like that. I never want to be so obsessed with my health. I just want to live quite happily. But, you know, you fall into traps and you can't help your brain whatsoever. So, you know, and I think the last 2 years being in a global pandemic, it's it's not been the best for people with health anxiety.
No, it's everywhere. Like you can't turn anywhere without hearing about, you know, wearing your mask and
how many cases per day. And it's just, I mean, you know, again, it's you obsess about things. And I say, you know, with health anxiety, you become obsessed. And I was overseas a few years ago, and I remember jotting down and secretly looking at where every hospital was in the different towns I was in case something happened. Really aware of how I was breathing, really aware. And it's such a crack up. I was so obsessed with if I had deep vein thrombosis. So I would check my legs all the time. I'd be in like the, you know, toilet in the plane, like massaging my legs, moving them up and down. And, you know, plane toilets are tiny. So I'm in there like doing stretches up a wall and stuff to make sure I was okay. And, you know, I can really laugh at this now, but I never want to ever make someone who is struggling think it's a joke. Like I laugh at myself because I'm like, oh, yeah. But anyone else, I'm like, no, this is okay. So, you know.
I think that's a very hallmark. It's an Aussie thing. We put humor on everything uncomfortable.
Oh, everything. That's why I think I've survived 32 years. I'm like, just laugh it off, mate. That
You'll be right.
Yeah, you'll be right.
Wow. So, so that was, you were saying, after you've already got one child and you were with your second, and so then, like, I guess, how did you cope parenting? Because, you know, kids pick up every bug, I reckon. And then you end up being the mum. Like, was that, how did you go?
That was so hard for me. That was such, again, looking back, such a hard time, because I was obsessed with keeping my 2 kids safe, keeping myself safe, making sure that no germs could come into the house. So, you know, there is parenting guilt in that sense that I wouldn't take them to the park as much as I could. And if we did, I was just like panic attack after panic attack. And, you know, that's really hard because you want to be a good parent, but, you know, there's a level of, you become a lioness when you're a mum. But I'm like, that's not being a lioness. Like, that's just crazy talk. So, like that was really hard when they were younger. And I think, you know, I do hold a lot of guilt with that as well, that I couldn't recognize I wasn't doing right in a sense, but it's all I knew. It's all I knew to do was to protect. So,
especially if that was what was modeled to you as well, like you were saying, you know, with your grandmother. And if it's normal to a degree within the space you grow up, it's hard to see where it might be dysfunctional. So what I guess, did you seek help, or did it come to you? Like how did that go?
Again, my family are all such beautiful supporters, and it was, hey, you're not doing well, I think you need to see a doctor. And I was like, okay, that sounds great, I'll do that. When the germs are in there, they're in the doctor's surgery, but okay. But I went and I saw my doctor, and she kind of immediately put me on medication, which I was like, yep, that's fine. Really, really high dose. I was like, yep, great, it's fine. And then kind of after a few visits, she said, let's introduce a psychologist. And I cannot recommend highly enough to talk to someone, whether that be a professional or someone you trust, because, you know, I still do it. I need a good lot of talk therapy. I need to talk myself down and be like, no, everything's okay. The psychologist I saw was wonderful. She understood, but then again, the anxiety creeps back in, and I was like, don't need this anymore because, you know, I'm okay. So I left it for a while. I was like, I'm fine. Like, but then again, it just slots right back in there, and I started to become obsessed with my heart. You know, started to become obsessed that I had stomach cancer, just a range of things. I was always so aware of little pains in my body and think, oh, this is how it ends. You know, I'm having a heart attack now, and it would be heart palpitations. And so again, slotting straight back in there.
Yeah. And I imagine it's the same thing as, you know, that I would deal with toilet anxiety, whereas when I look for the symptoms, I find them, like, and you don't realize that you're the one perpetuating that. And it's like, but I can feel it. I find it, you know, but
yes, I'm telling you, my stomach's hurting. It must be stomach cancer. Like, so I think that, and like, again, you know, mental illness can create so many physical symptoms. So it's, you know, in one way you're telling yourself, no, that's not right, but then your body's literally giving you, you know, stomach cramps and bowel issues, and you're going, well, you know, you've got to believe me. So
So how do you find the space between that? Like, how did you learn to kind of take that step back and I guess, you know, not obsess so much?
It is, I mean, I think a good lot of it is in time. You know, I'm still learning. I'm absolutely still learning how to handle myself. I say that, and I do look at myself of where I've been to where I am now, and I'm like, you are so much better. But I think a good lot of it is just seeking that help and talking it out and understanding your triggers, understanding what, you know, what you have to do, and whether or not that be exercise or journaling or tapping or whatever it is. And I think that's kind of, I'm still learning that I know it's okay to talk, and it's okay to feel like that as well, kind of to be a little bit more gentle with yourself and go, okay, I'm feeling like this, I need to go talk to someone, or I need to, you know, go outside for a minute. And
not fighting it as hard and trying to get rid of it, I suppose.
Because I think that just exhausts you even more, because when you are trying so hard to better yourself and make yourself better, I think that just, it's that extra level of pressure that you do not need at all.
It's like a hamster wheel, and you can't get off, and then you're exhausted and you're stuck, and it's like, I'm driving myself crazy. So you mentioned the pandemic before, and I'm particularly interested to find how that experience was for people with health anxiety, because I know for me, you know, my anxieties are always there. It's just a matter of whether or not I'm in that loop or I'm not. So, and it can get triggered by different things. So I know you said it was particularly challenging, but did you have a way of kind of, I guess, buffering that for yourself? Or was it just a whole like shit show?
It's only the last pretty much, I think the last 2 years, it's just been, whoop, nope. Like,
Yeah.
no one knows what the hell's going on. Like, even leaders of countries, we don't know really what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think that it's been, I mean, particularly that our case numbers here in New South Wales have grown dramatically over the last few months. I think that really set me off at the beginning. I was like, this is it, like, you know, COVID's here kind of thing. And I think at the beginning it was okay because it wasn't so present in the community and people weren't really talking about it. It was like, oh, did you hear, you know, there's this virus in Japan? And yep, and you'd leave it. But then I think the more the media latched on and the more that, you know, you're sitting there scrolling and people are messaging you about it. And I think that just plays such a big part because you can, in a way, block out and just focus on what you need to. Oh, yeah, I'll look at the case numbers and leave it at that. But when there's such a presence with it, I think that's what made it so much worse. Than people, you know, the deaths, they're reporting on deaths and the different symptoms. So, you know, I have had COVID. Luckily, I have been one of the lucky ones that really mild symptoms, but I finally got it. Like, it was like, oh, I've got it. Okay. So I was really prepared to be like, well, got to write my last testament and will. You know, I'd built myself.
Could get bad.
It could get bad. You never know. I might have an underlying condition. But, you know, once you've had it, I'm like, oh, okay, that was okay. Like, the kids are okay. Everyone's okay. But I think I've had to lean on my partner so much the last couple of years of having to talk it through. Yeah. And, you know, going, what's happening? What are we going to do here? You know, like, what if this happens? And, you know, I think isolation's been great in a sense in that way because you can control your little world and your bubble here. And but it has been, I think the last 2 years have really pushed me and really made me understand even more about my own health anxiety.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing as well. It's like another layer to surrender to, and you know, as unfortunate as the last 2 years have been and how painful and yuck, it's still another opportunity that we've, like you said, you've learned so much about how you can sort of nurture yourself through those yucky feelings.
There's been many, so
yes, it's not been a walk in the park for us in Australia lately.
Loving it.
So I'm interested in your daily routine or sort of things that you do to not say to stay mentally healthy, but I don't even like that term, but you know what I mean, like, how do you sort of support yourself?
Which is such a brand new concept to me because I've always just been like, get in and you have anxiety, like, get over yourself, but not getting over yourself by any means. So I think especially the last few months, I've really honed in on what makes me feel good. And I've started tapping, which has been, like, my counselor and I went through that a few months ago, and it's just unreal. Like, I love that. I'll sit there and I'll be doing it and I'm like, oh, look at me, like, self-care. But I mean, I think I've learnt over, I guess, the last 2 years to actually care for myself. So if I need a break, I'll go have a lay down. That's a total new concept to me, to be like, see you kids.
Checking out for a bit.
Love yous. But, and I think a lot, like, just I guess it's that. It's actually caring for myself and, you know, saying to myself, I'm going to have a cup of tea before bed, like, instead of, oh, maybe if I mop the floor before bed and things like that. So I think it's just, I mean, I'm not great with journaling, and I think that's the ADHD. I can't do it very well. But I do think tapping, and I love to just get out and sit in nature. Like, I just think that is such a underused, you know, medicine in a way for any mental health condition. I mean, right now it's not great with the rain, but, you know.
Even that can be nice sometimes though, you know. Like, I think it's funny that we're all, like, you know, buying weighted blankets and, like, you know, my daughter's got, like, fidget poppers, whatever they are, like, trying to buy all these self-care things when there's, like, we can literally just go outside. And,
like, literally just go sit at the beach. Much better.
It's one of those things that we just forget, like, I guess the simple things are sometimes what we need the most, and we try and make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. Like the kids and I went out the other day and were gardening, and I was like, oh, I have not felt this good in so long. Like we were just planting things, and I thought, holy shit, you've missed an opportunity there for 32 years. So it was lovely. Like it was, I think that you're exactly right, Lauren. I think it is the simple stuff.
Yeah.
Like for me anyway.
I've wondered if that's one of those age things though, because I noticed about 2 years ago that I started to like gardening, and I'm like, is this because I'm in my 30s now? Is this something that happens when you hit your 30s that you're like, gardening's great?
The soil.
Yeah. I was like, don't know about that one, but yeah, I love one of my favorite things when I'm outside is if I'm watering the plants, like letting the hose run over my bare feet. I don't know why, but it's like such a grounding thing, and it's so soothing.
Water. Oh my goodness, water. I think it is, again, such an underused medicine for people, because it's just cleansing. Like everything about it is, and that's something that even like I started like lapping in my pool and stuff, and I was like, yes, this is so great. But then you realize how unfit you are, and you're like, oh,
it brings a whole host of other problems. Yeah.
Maybe I want to sit on the step.
Is there an element with that self-care though where you've had to like, I know for me, I got a bit obsessed for a while with swimming as a way of making myself feel better, but then I was like, I don't have a backyard pool, so I was like going to the public pool, and I'm like, there's lots of germs in here. And I don't have a lot of health anxiety, but even I was like, and I actually got sick from the pool once, and it just started this whole thing in my head. And I guess I'm curious, has it helped you not just with like balancing your mental health, but with specifically with health anxiety?
I think I mean, I don't love the gym for that reason. Like I don't like it. I like to be kind of solo when I do go out for a walk and things like that. Because I do actually, I do agree with you there. I think that when it comes to health anxiety, normal things such as, going to the pool or the gym or, any type of fitness situation where there's a lot of people, you do kind of tend to not, I can't relax in that sense. But if I walk or swim by myself or am by myself, I know I'm okay, because I'm like, well, I can't give myself germs, can you? So,
yeah. Okay. Interesting. I just forgot what I was going to ask, because my brain was like, can you give yourself germs?
A little bit now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like,
yes, no, I'm sure that's not a thing. But so these days with your health anxiety, where would you say you are? Because I know you said you've come such a long way, and you look back then and think, wow, like I was really in a dark place. How are things for you now?
I think, honestly, they weren't great. I would say, okay, to say it honestly, it hasn't been great since obviously the start of the pandemic, and probably up until only a very short few weeks ago, purely because I've really, really put healing ahead of most things, because I just thought, I can't keep doing this. Like, I can't keep doing it. I mean, the great thing is I'm not staying home as much. Like, I'm not in that space where I was, 10 years ago, of having to be at home, having to be just, in the one area at home and no one touch anything else. But I think, it did get a point kind of maybe 6 months ago or something, I really couldn't function very well. And socially, I've got friends that want to take their kids to the park. Do you want to come, Meg? And I'd be like, nope, I can't actually do that. And I think that, there's so much pressure on people, and I wish people knew, like, especially that I wasn't doing that to be antisocial. I literally was like, I just can't. Yeah. I just cannot physically go there, because I don't know how I'm going to react, and I can't have another panic attack because I'm too tired for another panic attack. So I think at this very minute, I'm doing a lot better. Like, I'm a lot more I had an ECG the other day, and that was for something totally unrelated, but she's like, really good heart. And I'm like, yeah, but right now it's a really good heart. Well, you've got the ECG. And I'm like, how do you know I don't have problems?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think, it is good. I mean, I'm not obsessing about my health at the very minute, and that could be purely because I'm trying to busy myself, taking care of myself. But yeah, I think it's better than it was, say, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm having a heart attack. I don't think, my lungs collapse because I'm coughing too hard. So it's, yeah.
Surely I think like there's that natural ebb and flow to everything though, depending on what's going on in your life in other areas. There's always going to be, like I said, like I'm in the loop or I'm out of the loop. Sometimes I'm not doing so well. Sometimes I'm doing better. It's just always going to be riding that wave. And I think I've learned to kind of accept that about myself.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that I'm in a point of going, okay, it's okay. If you have a setback, that doesn't mean anything. That just means, in a positive way, look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
Like you're doing better than you were a few years ago. So I think, there is that positive self-talk that you have to do, or you just completely lose it. So
yeah. And you're a lot like me in always adding humor in there as well. So that's definitely one of my coping techniques.
Oh, it's like I can't not make a joke. So.
Yeah. So with the tapping, because I've learned a little bit about tapping, but it's not something that I've ever really delved into myself, like figuring out a practice on my own. If people want to know more about that, is it something that you can just talk to your therapist about? Is it?
Absolutely. If they, again, really, really, really happy with my current therapist. She is like a master in tapping, so she just knows
picturing like this Yoda, this like tapping Yoda.
She floats as we're having sessions. It's wonderful. But I mean, she simply said to me, have a Google. And I went, oh, okay, that's it. So had a Google, came in the next time. She went, what did you think? I went, let's do it. Let's try this. It's another, something else I can add to my belt of making myself feel better. Yeah. There's some really, really good websites to just have a look. If you just put in EFT tapping, so much comes up, so much. So it's not, and it's definitely not a practice that's too complicated. It explains the different points you tap at, what they do, the different mantras you can use. You can just use your own mantra of, I'm safe in my body. That's my biggest one, of my body knows what it's doing. Just to be like, my body is safe. So it's as simple as that. Like, and it's, I think it's such a good practice. I'm so thankful for her taking the time to teach me and show me.
Yeah. I imagine it's a really useful tool, because like nature, it's something that's accessible to you all the time, right? Pretty much. I mean, I know nature isn't always accessible to everyone, but it's like you can always tap. And I love what you said about I'm safe in my body, because that's always been a big one for me as well. And it's something that I'm still exploring. So I imagine that would be a really helpful mantra.
I think so. I think for anyone with any mental health issues, it's your brain. Like you can't help that. So you are safe yourself. Your brain's just telling you maybe not.
We have all these thoughts, and some aren't helpful, some are helpful, but we forget that doesn't mean anything really. Like our body knows what it's doing.
Yeah, your body's pretty, it's switched on.
Amazing. So if you've kind of already answered this before, but I'll ask it again. Is there a piece of advice you would give to somebody in their darkest day, or even yourself back when you were going through a really hard time? What would be the most important thing? I know you said talking is the main one. But is there something else you would recommend? Or
I think it would be that to really be gentle with yourself. to realize you are doing the absolute best you can do,
Yeah.
and to never put so much pressure on yourself, because you know, we're all humans, we're all trying our best. And if you've got that extra level of your brain just not cooperating,
Yeah.
you need to love yourself pretty much. So it's,
Yeah.
I think just be gentle with yourself.
I love that. I love that idea of like tenderness and just, you know, like you said, when we're kids, when we were children at least, it was not as gentle. It was like, get your shit together.
Yeah.
Like,
what are you cracking on with now? That kind of like, yes. Yeah. I think so. And I think it just stems not even with mental illness, just everyone, just be gentle with each other, with, you know, with yourself especially, because man, the world is just a crazy place. So,
yeah.
You know,
That's exactly right. I love that. I am going to link Meg's Instagram in the description box. You should definitely go check it out. She is at Shaking Hands with Fear. If anyone wants to contact you, is that cool? They can slide into your DMs.
Slide into the DMs. I will be there. Maybe awkwardness for a bit, but I'll be there. So.
Wicked, excellent. And I am personally going to go find out more about tapping, because it's one of those things that I heard but I just never really took on, but I'm really intrigued.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren, so much.
Thank you for being vulnerable and being real. Very appreciated.
It's all part of the anxiety, so